All right, Bulldogs, got a little bit of an unusual lab here. You may hear a little bit of a background noise because I actually have a live Cisco switch here on the table in our studio. And of course, it's usually down the hallway in our server room with everything else. But I needed immediate access to it because I want to show you this dynamic entry and what happens when, say, a port changes on us or a port goes bad. A couple things I already have on the screen here. First off, show MAC address table, and again, depending on the iOS version you're running, you may just need one of these hyphens or you may need both. It's just one of those things. And here we've got a lot of entries for the CPU and a lot of static entries. You will notice they're kind of in a row here, right? Because we go 7, 8, 9 and then A, B, C, D, E, F because of course that's hex. And then we've got one dynamic entry here at the very end. So it says total MAC addresses for this criterion 21. Well, of course, as we have more hosts and we have larger switches, if we just ran show MAC address table all the time, I mean, the table could be several screens. So maybe you want to filter that down and just look at your dynamic entries. And a great way to do that is just what I did here and run show MAC address table dynamic. And that, of course, shows us only our dynamic entries. Now, let's say that port 03 suddenly has a physical issue and the port goes bad. We have a couple of options there. As long as we have an open port on the switch, which we do, and they're all in the same VLAN, or the port that the port we're moving this cable to is in the same VLAN as port 3 is, then we're fine. And those two things are true in this situation. Well, we've got two things we could do there. If we were using static entries here, let's say this was a static entry on port 03, and that port goes down and we need to move it to, say, port 1. Well, we have to do two things then, right? We'd have to put the new static entry into the MAC address table, letting the switch know that this MAC address is now found off port 1, and we've got to take the old entry out. And we're all good typists, right? Yeah? But everybody mistypes something sooner or later. And the thing is, the more MAC addresses you're entering statically, of course, the odds increase that sooner or later you're going to mistype one letter, and then all of a sudden you're looking at the address and you don't see what's wrong with it, and this person's been off the network for a couple of minutes now, the phone starts ringing, cats and dogs start living together, it just goes to heck in a handbasket from there. So static entries, I know companies that use them, I've seen them on occasion, but it's so much more efficient to have this learning done dynamically, and we're going to test that right here. What I'm going to do using a highly scientific method is go to the other end of the table, move the cable from one port to another, and we're going to see how long it takes. Now, the timestamps won't tell us exactly when that entry is made, but I've got a little timer here, and I don't think it's going to take very long. So let me move on over, and I am now moving the cable. Oh, my manual labor is done for the day. Now, you're going to get the usual messages that you would expect, and I raised the font here big time, so I know it's cut off, but of course it says line protocol on 03 has changed state to down. The interface went down, and then interface fast Ethernet 01 went up, both physically and logically. And if we go ahead and run dynamic now, look at that, the entry's already been made. I mean, literally, it is seconds later. And what happened there is as soon as the switch saw frames from this device coming in on port 1, where they were coming in on port 3, the switch did two things for us. The first thing it did was remove the old entry, because it's saying, okay, I was getting frames from this guy on port 3, but now I'm getting them on port 1. So I need to change my MAC address table. Then on top of that, it took the old entry out and then quickly made a new one, and literally it just took seconds. That's why it is so efficient, so much more efficient, time efficient, and efficient overall, to just let the switch keep the MAC address table dynamically. Just wanted to show that to you live, so we moved the switch in here so we could do that. And having wrapped this video up, let's head for the next one. See you there.